The diplomatic chamber on Kepler Station buzzed with tension as representatives from two very different worlds sat across from each other. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Kane adjusted her blue uniform and looked directly at the alien sitting across. The polished metal table. Commander Vextal was huge, standing nearly 8 feet tall even when seated. His body was covered in a shell that looked like purple crystal, and he had 4 arms instead of 2 like humans. His eyes glowed yellow, and when he spoke, a small device on his collar translated his words into English. Lisa had been doing this job for 3 years now. She was good at talking to aliens and finding ways for different species to work together. Earth needed friends out here in space, and she was one of the people who helped make that happen. Today's meeting was supposed to be simple. Earth grew more food than they could eat, and the Zephyrian Empire needed that food for their colonies. It should have been easy to make a deal, but Commander Vextal was not making it easy. "Your people ask for too much," Vextal said, his translated voice sounding cold and angry. "We offer you technology. We offer you protection. You should be grateful." Lisa kept her voice calm and professional. "Commander, we appreciate what you're offering, but our food feeds millions of people across 12 star systems. The price we're asking is fair for everyone." The other humans in the room stayed quiet. They knew Lisa was good at her job, and they trusted her to handle the negotiations. There was Dr. Kevin Ross, who studied alien cultures, and Captain Nick Turner, who was there to make sure everyone stayed safe. 2 other diplomats, Amy Clark and Tony Lopez, took notes and watched for any signs of trouble. On the other side of the table, 3 other Zephyrians sat with their commander. They all looked similar, with the same crystal-like shells and yellow eyes. They hadn't said much during the meeting, letting Vextal do most of the talking. "Fair?" Vextal's voice got louder and the translator made a harsh buzzing sound. "Your species is young and weak. You have been in space for less than 100 years. We have ruled the stars for over 3,000 years. You should take what we offer and be happy about it." Lisa felt her jaw tighten, but she kept her expression neutral. She had dealt with arrogant aliens before. Some species thought that because humans were new to space travel, they were easy to push around. They were usually wrong about that. "Age doesn't determine worth, Commander," Lisa said quietly. "Earth's agricultural output has increased food security for the entire sector. Our crops grow better and faster than anything else available. That has value, regardless of how long we've been traveling between stars." Dr. Ross leaned forward slightly. He had studied the Zephyrians for months before this meeting. "Commander Vextal, our research shows that your colonies in the Outer Rim are struggling with food production. Without Earth's grain shipments, some of those worlds might face serious shortages within 2 years." The alien commander's eyes flashed brighter. "You dare to threaten us?" "Nobody is threatening anyone," Lisa said quickly. "Dr. Ross is simply stating facts. We want to help, but we need fair compensation. Our farmers work hard to grow this food, and they deserve to be paid properly for their efforts." Vextal stood up suddenly, his massive frame towering over the table. The other Zephyrians remained seated, but Lisa could see them watching their commander carefully. Captain Turner's hand moved closer to his sidearm, though he didn't draw it. "Your farmers are insects compared to our warriors," Vextal snarled. "Your entire species exists only because we allow it. You should be honored that we even speak to you directly instead of sending servants." The tension in the room became thick enough to cut. Lisa stood up as well, though she was much smaller than the alien commander. At 5 feet 6 inches tall, she barely came up to his chest, but she didn't back down. "Commander, I understand you're frustrated, but insults won't help us reach an agreement," she said. "Let's take a break and come back to this with clearer heads." "There will be no break," Vextal roared. "You will accept our terms now, or your pathetic world will learn what happens to those who defy the Zephyrian Empire. Are you threatening Earth?" Captain Turner asked, his voice sharp. "I am stating reality," Vextal replied. "Your military is a joke. Your ships are toys. Your weapons are primitive. We could destroy your entire fleet before your admirals even knew we were coming." Lisa took a deep breath. She had been in situations like this before, though never quite this bad. Some alien species used intimidation as a negotiating tactic. The key was to stay calm and not let them see that their threats were working. "Commander, threats have no place in diplomatic negotiations," she said firmly. "If you're not interested in reaching a fair agreement today, we can schedule another meeting when everyone has had time to think things over." That was apparently the wrong thing to say. Vextal's forearms spread wide and he leaned over the table toward Lisa. His yellow eyes blazed with fury, and when he spoke, his voice was so loud that the translator crackled with static. "You dare to dismiss me? You insignificant creature, you will show proper respect to your betters." Before anyone could react, before Captain Turner could draw his weapon, before Dr. Ross could say anything to calm the situation, Commander Vextal reached out with one of his massive arms and shoved Lisa hard in the chest. The push sent her stumbling backward. She hit the wall behind her chair but managed to keep her footing. For a moment, the room was completely silent. Everyone stared in shock at what had just happened. Lisa looked down at her uniform where the alien's clawed hand had made contact. There were small tears in the fabric, and she could feel the beginnings of bruises forming on her chest. She looked back up at Commander Vextal, and her brown eyes were blazing with controlled anger. "Meeting adjourned," she said quietly, her voice deadly calm. She reached for the communication device on her belt. "We'll reconvene when cooler heads prevail." The other Zephyrians looked uncomfortable. One of them started to say something to their commander in their own language, but Vextal cut him off with a sharp gesture. "Good," the alien commander said with satisfaction. "Perhaps now you understand your place in the order of things. When you are ready to be reasonable, we will be waiting." Captain Turner was already moving toward Lisa, his hand on his weapon. "Commander Kane, are you injured?" "I'm fine," Lisa replied, though her chest ached where she had been struck. "Doctor, Ross, Amy, Tony, we're leaving. Now." As the human delegation gathered their things and prepared to leave, Lisa activated her communication device. She sent a brief message that would change everything, though nobody in the room realized it yet. The message was simple. Diplomatic representative physically assaulted during negotiations. Recommend immediate escalation protocols. Commander. Vextal watched the humans leave with smug satisfaction. He believed he had won the confrontation by showing the weak creatures their proper place. He had no idea that he had just made the biggest mistake of his very long life. Within 5 minutes, Lisa's message would reach Earth Command. Within 30 minutes, the most powerful military force in the galaxy would begin moving toward Kepler Station. Within hours, Commander Vextal would learn exactly what happened when someone put their hands on a human diplomat. But for now, he sat back down at the negotiating table, pleased with himself and completely unaware that he had just started a chain of events that would change how every species in the galaxy viewed humanity forever. Admiral John Hayes was reading reports in his office when the priority message arrived. The red light on his desk started flashing, which meant something very important was happening. He had been in the Earth Defense Force for 32 years, and he knew that flashing red lights usually meant bad news. He opened the message and read it twice. Then he read it a third time to make sure he understood correctly. Someone had put their hands on Lisa Kane. Someone had actually touched a human diplomat during official negotiations. Admiral Hayes was a tall man with gray hair and scars on his hands from his younger days as a ship captain. He had fought in 3 different conflicts and had seen more battles than most people could imagine. But right now, his face was completely calm as he reached for his communication device. "Get me General Wells, Admiral Chen, and General Parker," he said to his assistant. "Emergency meeting in Conference Room Alpha, Priority 1. Within 10 minutes, the most powerful military leaders on Earth were sitting around a metal table in a secure room deep inside Earth Command headquarters." Admiral Hayes placed Lisa's message on the center screen where everyone could read it. "General." Patricia Wells was the first to speak. She was in charge of all Earth's ground forces and had a reputation for being very direct. "They did what?" "Physical assault on a diplomatic representative during official negotiations," Admiral Hayes repeated. "This crosses every line we've established since first contact with alien species." Admiral Mary Chen, who commanded Earth's Space Navy, leaned back in her chair. She was smaller than the others, but everyone knew she was extremely smart when it came to military strategy. What do we know about this Vextal character? He's a mid-level commander in the Zephyrian military, said General Parker, reading from his tablet. He's been in service for about 40 years. No major battles on his record, mostly garrison duty and diplomatic escort missions. So he's never actually fought anyone, General Wells said with a grim smile. That explains a lot. Admiral Hayes stood up and walked to the large window that looked out over Earth Command's main base. Hundreds of ships could be seen in the distance, and thousands of personnel moved between buildings like ants, working on a giant project. Ladies and gentlemen, he said without turning around, we have spent the last 15 years building our reputation as a peaceful species. We talk first, fight second. We negotiate, we compromise, we find solutions that work for everyone. He turned back to face the others. But there is one rule that every species in the galaxy needs to understand. You do not put your hands on our people. Ever. Admiral Chen nodded slowly. What are you thinking, John? I'm thinking it's time to remind the galaxy why Earth has never lost a war, Admiral Hayes replied. Patricia, how long would it take to mobilize the Fifth Fleet? General Wells checked her tablet. 6 hours for full deployment. We have 43 ships in dock and 14 more on patrol nearby. All of them can be ready for hyperspace jump by this evening. And ground forces? I can have 2 full Marine battalions ready in 4 hours. That's 1,200 soldiers with full combat gear. Admiral Chen was already working on her own tablet. I can have the entire Fifth Fleet plus support vessels at Kepler Station in 18 hours. But John, are you sure we want to show that much force? The Zephyrians might see it as an act of war. Admiral Hayes sat back down and looked at each of his colleagues. The Zephyrians committed an act of war when they assaulted our diplomat. We're just going to explain that to them in terms they can understand. On the other side of Earth, Captain Ryan Murphy was enjoying a quiet dinner with his crew when the emergency alert sounded throughout his ship. The USS Defiance was one of Earth's newest and most advanced vessels, and Captain Murphy had commanded her for 3 years. Captain, to the bridge, came the announcement over the ship's communication system. Priority 1 message from Earth Command. Captain Murphy was a former fighter pilot who had worked his way up through the ranks. He was known for being calm under pressure and for taking very good care of his crew. He walked quickly to the bridge, where his senior officers were already waiting. What? Do we have Commander Peterson? He asked his second in command. Commander Lisa Peterson was reading from a message pad. Orders from Admiral Hayes himself, sir. We're to proceed immediately to Kepler Station with maximum speed. The entire Fifth Fleet is being mobilized. The entire Fifth Fleet? Captain Murphy raised his eyebrows. That's a lot of firepower for a diplomatic mission. What happened out there? According to the message, there was an incident during negotiations. A Zephyrian commander physically assaulted Commander Kane. The bridge went quiet. Everyone knew Lisa Kane's reputation. She was one of Earth's best diplomats and had prevented several conflicts through her skilled negotiations. She was also known for being tough and professional. They put hands on Lisa Kane? Asked Lieutenant Commander Brad Nelson, the ship's tactical officer. Are they completely insane? Apparently so, Captain Murphy replied. Set course for Kepler Station, maximum hyperspace speed, and send a message to all department heads. I want this ship ready for anything when we arrive. Meanwhile, back on Kepler Station, Lisa Kane was in her quarters writing a detailed report about what had happened. Her chest still hurt where Vextal had pushed her, and she could see dark bruises forming when she looked in the mirror. But she was more angry than hurt. Dr. Kevin Ross knocked on her door and came in when she called for him to enter. He was carrying a medical scanner and a cup of coffee. How are you feeling? He asked, setting the coffee down on her desk. Like I've been shoved by an 8-foot alien with anger management problems, Lisa replied. But I'll be fine. It's not the first time someone has tried to intimidate me. This is different, though, Dr. Ross said, running the medical scanner over her chest to check for serious injuries. The Zephyrians have a very strict culture based on dominance and submission. In their society, physical contact like that is a way of establishing who is in charge. Lisa looked up from her report. What are you saying? I'm saying that Vextal didn't just lose his temper. He was trying to put you in what he thinks is your proper place. To him, shoving you was the same as declaring that humans are beneath Zephyrians in the natural order. Well, he's about to learn that humans have a very different opinion about the natural order, Lisa said grimly. Her communication device buzzed with an incoming message. She read it and smiled for the first time since the incident. "What is it?" Dr. Ross asked. "Message from Admiral Hayes. The Fifth Fleet is on its way. Estimated arrival time is 16 hours. Dr. Ross whistled softly. The entire Fifth Fleet? That's 57 ships? 57 ships carrying the most advanced weapon systems in the galaxy? Lisa added. I almost feel sorry for Commander Vextal. Almost. On the Zephyrian side of the station, Vextal was reporting to his superiors about the successful end to negotiations. He told them that the humans had been properly disciplined and that they would probably accept Zephyrian terms when they came back to the table. His second-in-command, Sub-Commander Keltar, was not so sure. Commander, I have been studying human behavior since we arrived here. They do not typically respond to physical intimidation the way other species do. Nonsense, Vextal replied. All species understand strength. The humans are young and weak. They will learn their place like all the others have. But even as he said those words, long-range sensors were beginning to detect something moving through hyperspace toward Kepler Station. Something big. Something that would arrive very soon and change everything Vextal thought he knew about the human species. The message had been sent. The fleet was moving. And in less than a day, Commander, Vextal would discover exactly what happened when someone made the mistake of putting their hands on a human diplomat. Commander Vextal slept well the night after shoving the human diplomat. In his mind, the matter was completely settled. The humans had learned their place in the natural order of things, and when they returned to negotiations, they would accept whatever terms the Zephyrian Empire offered them. This was how things had always worked with younger species. He woke up in his quarters aboard the Zephyrian vessel docked at Kepler Station and went through his normal morning routine. He ate his breakfast, reviewed reports from his subordinates, and prepared for another day of what he expected would be easy negotiations with the now properly disciplined humans. Sub-Commander Keltar knocked on his door just as Vextal was finishing his meal. Keltar was younger than his commander and had spent more time studying other species. He often worried that Vextal did not take alien cultures seriously enough. Commander, I have the morning sensor reports, Keltar said as he entered the room. Anything interesting? Vextal asked without looking up from his food. Sir, we are detecting unusual hyperspace activity at the edge of the system. Multiple ships are approaching our position. Vextal finally looked up. What kind of ships? Merchant vessels bringing more food supplies. Keltar checked his tablet again. No, sir. The energy signatures match military vessels, large ones. And there are many of them. For the first time since the incident with the human diplomat, Vextal felt a small flutter of concern. How many is many? Current count is 57 ships, sir. All military class. All human. The piece of food Vextal had been chewing suddenly tasted like metal. He stood up quickly and followed Keltar to the ship's command center. Other Zephyrian officers were already there, staring at the sensor displays with worried expressions. Show me, Vextal ordered. The main screen lit up with a tactical display of the star system. At the edge of the system, a massive formation of red dots was moving toward Kepler Station. Each dot represented a human warship, and there were more of them than Vextal had ever seen in one place. This must be some kind of mistake, he said, but his voice was not as confident as usual. Why would the humans send so many ships here? Lieutenant Zekmore, the youngest officer on the ship, cleared his throat nervously. Sir, I have been monitoring human communications. They are using military encryption, but we were able to decode some of the messages. What do the messages say? Vextal demanded. They refer to something called proportional response protocols and mention the incident yesterday during negotiations. The command center went very quiet. Everyone looked at their commander, waiting to see how he would react to this news. Vextal felt his confidence cracking like ice under pressure. That is impossible, he said. No species mobilizes an entire fleet because of a simple diplomatic disagreement. But even as he said it, he remembered stories he had heard about humans, stories that other Zephyrian commanders had dismissed as exaggerations or lies, stories about human military tactics that made no sense to civilized species. On the human side of the station, Lisa Kane was watching the same sensor displays with very different feelings. She stood in the station's command center alongside Captain Turner and Dr. Ross, all of them smiling as they watched the approaching fleet. 57 ships, Captain Turner said with satisfaction. Admiral Hayes is not playing around. I hope Commander Vextal is getting a good look at those sensors, Lisa said. I want him to understand exactly what he started when he put his hands on me. Dr. Ross was studying both the sensor display and a tablet showing Zephyrian ship configurations. Lisa, I think you should know something about Zephyrian military doctrine. They have never faced an opponent who responded to diplomacy failures with overwhelming force. What do you mean? Lisa asked. Most species in the galaxy fight small battles over territory or resources. When the Zephyrians want something, they usually just take it because their opponents cannot match their individual ship technology. But they have never fought against an enemy who brings 57 ships to settle a diplomatic dispute. Captain Turner grinned. They are about to get a very expensive education in human conflict resolution. The human fleet continued to approach Kepler Station in perfect formation. Every ship was exactly where it was supposed to be, moving at exactly the right speed, maintaining exactly the right distance from its neighbors. It was a display of coordination and discipline that impressed even experienced military officers. Admiral Hayes was aboard the flagship USS Intrepid, standing on the bridge and watching the tactical displays. His fleet was performing flawlessly, just as he had expected. Captain Jennifer Martinez, the ship's commander, stood beside him. Admiral, we are receiving a communication request from the Zephyrian vessel, she reported. Put it through, Admiral Hayes replied. Commander Vextal appeared on the main screen. He looked much less confident than he had the day before. His yellow eyes were dimmer and his forearms moved nervously as he spoke. Admiral Hayes, I presume. I am Commander Vextal of the Zephyrian Empire. May I ask why you have brought so many ships to this peaceful station? Admiral Hayes looked directly into the alien's eyes. Commander Vextal, you physically assaulted a representative of Earth during official diplomatic negotiations. That is an act of war according to our laws and customs. Act of war? Vextal's voice cracked slightly. Surely you are overreacting to a minor incident. These things happen during tense negotiations. No, Commander, they do not happen. Not to our people. Admiral Hayes's voice was calm and cold. You have 1 hour to provide a formal apology to Commander Kane and to remove yourself from command of your vessel. If you do not comply with these demands, Earth will consider the Zephyrian Empire to be in a state of war with humanity. The communication ended, leaving Vextal staring at a blank screen. He turned to look at his officers, all of whom were staring back at him with expressions of fear and disbelief. This is madness, he said, but his voice was weak. No one starts a war over such a small thing. Sub-Commander Keltar stepped forward. Sir, I recommend we contact the High Command immediately. This situation is beyond our authority to handle. Vextal wanted to argue, but he could see the human fleet on his sensors. 57 ships arranged in attack formation just outside weapons range. Each of those ships carried enough firepower to destroy his vessel several times over. He opened a communication channel to the Zephyrian High Command, located on the homeworld 3 star systems away. It would take several minutes for his message to reach them, and several more minutes to receive a reply. While they waited, the human fleet continued its approach. They stopped just outside the range of the station's defensive systems, maintaining perfect formation. It was clear that they could attack at any moment, but they were waiting for something. Dr. Amanda Foster was aboard one of the human ships, reviewing everything she had learned about Zephyrian biology and psychology. Her research had revealed some very interesting facts about the alien species, facts that might prove useful in the coming confrontation. She sent a message to Admiral Hayes with her findings. The Zephyrians were physically strong and had excellent, individual ship technology, but they had never developed tactics for large-scale fleet combat. They were used to winning battles through superior individual performance, not through coordinated group action. This was exactly the kind of information that could determine the outcome of a battle before the first shot was fired. Back on the Zephyrian command ship, they finally received a reply from the High Command. Vextal read the message twice, his confidence completely gone. The High Command had refused to apologize or remove him from command. They ordered him to stand his ground and show the humans that the Zephyrian Empire would not be intimidated. Vextal looked at the sensor display showing 57 human warships and realized that he was about to find out what happened when an unstoppable force met an immovable object. The hour passed slowly for Commander Vextal. He sat in his command chair, watching the human fleet on his sensors and waiting for some kind of miracle that would make this nightmare go away. But the miracle never came. And when the hour was up, Admiral Hayes appeared on his communication screen again. "Your time is up, Commander Vextal," the human admiral said calmly. "Have you reconsidered our demands?" Vextal straightened in his chair, trying to show confidence he did not feel. "The Zephyrian High Command has reviewed your demands and found them unacceptable. We will not apologize for maintaining proper order during negotiations, and we will not remove a commander for doing his duty." Admiral Hayes nodded as if he had expected this answer. "I see. In that case, you are about to learn why it is a very bad idea to put your hands on a human diplomat." The communication ended, and for a few moments, nothing happened. The human fleet remained in its perfect formation, waiting quietly in space. Vextal began to hope that maybe the humans were bluffing, that they would not actually attack over such a small incident. Then the demonstration began. The first thing that happened was that every Zephyrian ship in the system suddenly lost power. Not just weapons power or engine power, but all power. Lights went out, life support systems stopped working, and communication systems went silent. In the space of 30 seconds, 6 Zephyrian vessels became helpless metal boxes floating in space. "What is happening?" Vextal shouted, but his voice echoed strangely in the darkened command center. Emergency power kicked in a few seconds later, but the main systems remained offline. Sub-Commander Keltar was frantically working at his station, trying to understand what had gone wrong. "Sir, it appears to be some kind of electromagnetic pulse weapon, but I have never seen anything like this before. It targeted our specific power systems without affecting the humans or the station." Before Vextal could respond, he heard a strange sound coming from somewhere else in his ship. It was a rhythmic thumping noise like metal being struck repeatedly. Then he heard voices speaking in a language his translator could not identify. "Sir," came a frightened voice over the communication system. "This is Security Chief Mork Tan. We have intruders aboard the ship. Human soldiers are cutting through our hull in at least 6 different locations." Vextal felt his world spinning out of control. "How is that possible? We are in space. How did they get aboard our ship?" "Unknown, sir. They appear to be using some kind of small boarding craft that our sensors could not detect." Lieutenant Colonel Steve Davis led the first boarding team through the hole they had cut in the Zephyrian ship's hull. He was a veteran of dozens of similar operations, though most of them had been against human enemies rather than aliens. Behind him came 11 other Marines, all wearing advanced combat armor and carrying weapons designed specifically for close-quarters fighting in space. "Remember, people," he said quietly into his helmet microphone, "we want prisoners, not bodies. These weapons are set to stun, not kill. We go in fast, we take control of key areas, and we show them that resistance is futile." The Marines moved through the Zephyrian ship like ghosts. Their armor was designed to be nearly silent, and their training had taught them how to move through enemy territory without being detected. The aliens had no idea how many humans were aboard their ship or where they were going to appear next. Dr. Amanda Foster's research had proven invaluable. She had discovered that Zephyrian exoskeletons, while very strong, had a specific weakness. They were vulnerable to sonic weapons that operated at a particular frequency. The humans had built special devices that could incapacitate the aliens without causing permanent harm. The first group of Zephyrian soldiers the Marines encountered never had a chance to fight back. The sonic weapons left them unconscious in seconds, and the humans moved past them toward the ship's command center. Commander, Vextel was still trying to understand what was happening when the doors to his command center suddenly exploded inward. Smoke filled the room, and through the smoke came figures in dark armor, carrying weapons that hummed with energy. "Nobody move," Lieutenant Colonel Davis announced in perfect Zephyrian, his translator making his words clear to everyone in the room. "We are taking control of this vessel. Anyone who resists will be stunned and restrained." Vextal looked around at his officers, all of whom were staring at the human soldiers with expressions of complete shock. Some of the Zephyrians reached for their weapons, but the sonic devices activated before they could draw them. Within seconds, half of the command crew was unconscious on the floor. "You cannot do this," Vextal said, his voice shaking with rage and fear. "This is an act of piracy. You have no right to board our vessel." "Actually, we have every right," Lieutenant Colonel Davis replied. "You committed an act of war when you assaulted our diplomat. This is our response to that act of war." 2. Marines moved forward and placed restraints on Vextal's forearms. The restraints were made of a material he had never seen before, and no matter how hard he struggled, he could not break them. "Your ship is now under human control," Davis continued. "Your crew will be treated well as long as they cooperate. Anyone who tries to resist will be stunned and secured." Similar scenes were playing out on all 6 Zephyrian vessels. Human boarding parties had taken control of each ship within 30 minutes of the assault beginning. Not a single human had been injured, and while some Zephyrians were unconscious, none had been seriously hurt. Admiral Hayes watched the operation from his flagship, monitoring reports from all the boarding teams. Captain Martinez stood beside him, amazed at how smoothly everything was going. "All ships report successful boarding actions, Admiral," she said. "Total time from start to finish was 28 minutes. No human casualties, minimal alien casualties." "Excellent," Admiral Hayes replied. "Now comes the important part. Open a communication channel to all Zephyrian vessels in the system." When the channel was open, Admiral Hayes addressed the alien crews directly. "This is Admiral Hayes of the Earth Defense Force. Your ships are now under our control. Your commanders are our prisoners. This demonstration is now complete." On Kepler Station, Lisa Kane watched the entire operation through the station's sensors. She had to admit that she was impressed. The human military had just captured 6 alien warships without firing a single lethal shot. It was the kind of precision operation that would be talked about in military academies for years to come. Dr. Ross stood beside her, shaking his head in amazement. "Lisa, do you realize what just happened? The humans just defeated an entire Zephyrian task force in less than half an hour, and they did it without killing anyone." "That was the point," Lisa replied. "This wasn't about destroying the Zephyrians. This was about teaching them a lesson they will never forget." Captain Turner was monitoring communications from both sides. "The other Zephyrian ships in nearby systems are requesting emergency instructions from their high command. Word of this is spreading fast." On his captured ship, Commander Vextal sat in restraints, watching human soldiers efficiently take control of all his ship's systems. Lieutenant Colonel Davis approached him with something that looked like a communication device. "Commander, you are going to send a message to your high command," Davis said. "You are going to tell them exactly what happened here today, and you are going to explain to them why it happened." "I will tell them nothing," Vextal replied defiantly. Davis smiled. "Commander, your ship is now broadcasting live video to every Zephyrian vessel in 3 star systems. Your people can see that you are a prisoner aboard your own ship. They can see that humans have accomplished something that should have been impossible. You can send the message yourself, or we can let the video speak for itself." Vextal looked around at his captured command center, at his unconscious officers, and at the human soldiers who had taken control of everything he had thought was secure. For the first time in his long military career, he began to understand that there were some mistakes that could not be undone. The demonstration was complete, but its effects would last for generations. 3 weeks had passed since the incident at Kepler Station, and the galaxy had not stopped talking about what happened. News traveled fast between star systems, and every species with space travel capabilities had heard the story. A human diplomat had been pushed by an alien commander, and within hours Earth had sent 57 warships to capture an entire enemy fleet without killing anyone. Lisa Kane stood in a much different diplomatic chamber now. This one was on Earth's largest space station, and instead of facing one alien species across a table, she was looking at representatives from 12 different worlds. All of them had requested emergency meetings with Earth after hearing about the Kepler station incident. Ambassador Helen Carter, Earth's senior diplomat, sat beside Lisa. Helen was an older woman with silver hair who had been negotiating with aliens since first contact 15 years ago. She had seen many changes in how other species viewed humanity, but nothing like what was happening now. The Altarian Republic wishes to establish formal trade agreements with Earth, announced Ambassador Zixnal, a tall, thin creature with blue skin and large black eyes. We believe our two species could benefit greatly from closer cooperation. Lisa nodded politely. We would be happy to discuss trade arrangements. What did you have in mind? We offer rare minerals from our mining worlds in exchange for protection services, the Altarian replied. We have heard that Earth provides very effective security for its allies. Ambassador Carter smiled slightly. This was the fifth species, this week to ask for protection services. Before the Kepler station incident, most aliens had viewed human military forces as primitive and weak. Now they were lining up to hire Earth as bodyguards. On the other side of the galaxy, Commander Vextal sat in a small room on a Zephyrian prison ship. He was no longer a commander. The High Command had stripped him of his rank and sentenced him to 5 years of detention for causing what they now called the Kepler disaster. The disaster had cost the Zephyrian Empire much more than 6 captured ships. Word of their defeat had spread to every corner of known space, and suddenly everyone knew that the mighty Zephyrian military could be beaten. 3 of their subject worlds had declared independence in the past 2 weeks, and several enemy species were testing Zephyrian defenses in border systems. Sub-Commander Keltar, now promoted to commander of the vessel Vextal had lost, came to visit his former superior. Keltar looked uncomfortable as he sat across from the disgraced officer. The High Command wants to know if you have any insights about human military tactics, Keltar said quietly. They are trying to understand how the humans defeated us so completely. Vextal laughed bitterly. I have learned many things about humans, Keltar, but the most important lesson is this. They do not think like we do. When we want something, we take it by force. When humans want something, they find the most efficient way to get it. What do you mean? They could have destroyed our ships and killed everyone aboard. Instead, they captured us without firing a single lethal shot. They proved their point without starting a war that would have killed millions of people. That is not how warriors think. That is how strategists think. Keltar frowned. But they sent 57 ships to deal with 6 of ours. That seems like excessive force. No, Vextal replied. That was the perfect amount of force. Enough to guarantee victory, but not enough to cause unnecessary destruction. They wanted to send a message to the entire galaxy, and they succeeded. Back on Kepler Station, Captain Ryan Murphy was overseeing joint training exercises between human and Zephyrian forces. The Zephyrian High Command had requested the exercises as part of their formal apology to Earth. They wanted to learn human tactics and show that they were serious about improving relations. Captain Murphy watched as human Marines worked alongside Zephyrian soldiers on boarding simulations. The aliens were having trouble adapting to human small unit tactics, but they were trying hard to learn. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Kim, his tactical officer, approached with a status report. Captain, the Zephyrians are struggling with coordinated movements. Their training focuses on individual combat skills, not team operations. That's why we're here, Murphy replied. They are learning that there is more to fighting than individual strength. Give them time. Dr. Amanda Foster had become something of a celebrity in scientific circles. Her research on Zephyrian biology had been crucial to the success of the boarding operations. and now every major university wanted her to speak about cross-species military applications. She was currently working on a new project, studying the military doctrines of 15 different alien species. Earth Command wanted to understand how other civilizations approached warfare, just in case they ever needed to fight them. The fascinating thing, she explained to her research team, is that most species in the galaxy fight the same way the Zephyrians do. They rely on superior technology or individual skill. Very few have developed the kind of coordinated tactics that humans use. Her assistant, Dr. Paul Martinez, looked up from his tablet. Why do you think that is? I think it's because most species achieved space travel before they had to fight major wars. Humans spent thousands of years fighting each other on one planet before we reached the stars. We learned how to coordinate large military operations out of necessity. The impact of the Kepler station incident was being felt in every corner of the galaxy. The Thrakari Confederation, which had been planning to expand into human space, quietly canceled their invasion plans. The Nexus Trade Alliance increased their offers for exclusive trade deals with Earth. Even the mysterious Void Dwellers, who rarely communicated with anyone, sent a message congratulating humanity on their impressive display of restraint. Admiral Hayes was in his office reading reports about all these developments when Admiral Chen knocked on his door. She entered carrying a tablet full of new intelligence data. "John, you need to see this," she said, setting the tablet on his desk. "Our intelligence people have been monitoring communications across 12 star systems. Every major power is reassessing their military strategies based on what happened at Kepler Station." Admiral Hayes picked up the tablet and read through the reports. 3 species were developing new coordination protocols for their fleets. 2 others were requesting military advisors from Earth. The Zephyrian Empire was completely reorganizing their command structure. "We changed the rules of the game," Admiral Chen continued. "Before this, most conflicts in space were settled by whoever had the biggest ships or the most advanced weapons. Now everyone knows that tactics and coordination matter just as much as technology." "That was the point," Admiral Hayes replied. "We wanted to show the galaxy that humans are not to be underestimated, but we also wanted to show them that we prefer peaceful solutions when possible." Lisa Kane was finishing her latest diplomatic meeting when she received an unexpected visitor. A guard escorted a figure in a hooded robe into her office. When the figure lowered his hood, Lisa saw that it was former Commander Vextal. "Commander Kane," he said formally, "I have requested permission to speak with you." Lisa gestured to a chair. "Please sit down, though I believe you are no longer a commander." "That is correct. I am simply Vextal now." He sat down carefully, his forearms folded in what Lisa had learned was a gesture of respect among his people. "I have come to apologize personally for my actions 3 weeks ago." "The Zephyrian High Command has already issued a formal apology," Lisa replied. "Yes, but their apology was about politics and avoiding further conflict. My apology is about understanding what I did wrong." Vextal looked directly at her. "I spent 40 years believing that physical strength was the most important quality. A leader could have. I thought that intimidating others was a sign of power." He paused, seeming to struggle with his words. "Your people taught me that true strength is knowing when not to use your power. You could have destroyed our entire fleet, but you chose not to. You could have killed everyone aboard our ships, but you chose not to. That choice required more strength than any display of force." Lisa studied the alien's face. She could see genuine regret in his yellow eyes. "What will you do now?" "I have requested assignment to a cultural exchange program. I want to study human philosophy and military theory. Perhaps I can help prevent others from making the same mistake I made." After Vextal left, Lisa sat in her office thinking about how much had changed in just 3 weeks. The galaxy had learned that humans were not the weak, primitive species that many had assumed them to be. More importantly, they had learned that humanity preferred to solve problems with minimum necessary force, rather than maximum possible destruction. Her communication device buzzed with another meeting request. This time, it was from the Galactic Council itself. They wanted Earth to become a permanent member and help mediate disputes between other species. Lisa smiled as she accepted the meeting. The incident at Kepler Station had started with one angry alien pushing one human diplomat. It was ending with humanity taking its place as one of the galaxy's major powers, and everywhere in the galaxy, on ships and stations and planets, aliens were learning a new rule of interstellar relations. Never put your hands on a human diplomat.